it's fascinating to see how much tension can be made in an episode of television if you just don't show everything. Hello, everyone. Terrence here with Hollywood Already Did It. If you haven't already, go ahead, like, share, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, ring that bell below. Anytime we have something, you will be among the first to know. We're on the 4th episode of The Patient for FX. This one's called Company. And as we last left Alan and Sam, Sam has dropped off a new house guest into the extra room that is down in the basement, and leaves. And so this episode opens with sort of the night of, because Sam just goes back up to the top of the house to his room and goes to sleep peacefully, calmly. Wow, well, Alan gets no sleep at all. He's tossing and turning. He's having nightmares. He's like, I don't know what is happening behind that door. I don't know what that man knows or what's been happening to him or what the plan is to happen to him. Which is the greatest thing about this episode, is that we don't get to see what we find out his name to be Elias. We don't see Elias until the last 5 seconds of the show. And so it is very much that man behind the door. And Alan's entire goal is to make sure that Sam doesn't go on the opposite side of that door. Because if Sam goes on the opposite side of that door, who knows what happens. So this is very much of Alan's being in full therapy mode, like, I got to do everything possible to get him out of the house or get him away from that door. And so after the title card, once we get past the sleeping issues for Alan, Sam comes downstairs and like, look, I did what you said. You told me to come talk to you when I felt the urge, and I really wanted to kill this dude. And so I'm talking to you before I do, and I brought him here, but I'm talking to you now. Help me, fix me, because what you're doing doesn't seem to be working. And Alan's like, let's have a seat, let's talk. Because in his entire brain, his process is like, okay, you did part of what I told you to do. You still brought the man here, but you did part of what I told you to do. But that option to kill is still on the board. So let's get you out of the house. And so based on some of this information that we saw at the beginning, he's been married before. He used to do these concerts with his wife. He's gotten a little bit more information about Sam. And in this, he starts using some of that to be like, hey, you need to go on and continue your job as you normally would. Like you go to all these restaurants, you are the food purveyor, you're the food inspector. You need to go to still do things as if it was normal, because right now somebody on one of your jobs is missing. You're going to cause attention to yourself. Alan doesn't really care. He wants him to cause attention to himself, but he wants to get whoever's behind that door a little bit more time so he can figure out what's next to do. And Sam's not really receptive to this. Like, you want me to go on about my day? And he's like, yeah, I do. I want you to go on and do all the things that you normally do, because you don't want to come off as obvious or whatnot. And Sam's like, well, people like me there, which is kind of a clue. But people like me there. They're going to notice if something's off. And it's very much because Sam is clearly a routine person. Like, everything has to be by the books. This, and this work. So there's a routine to it. And he is thrown off a little bit, because when he does go to work, he forgets to get the donuts, which is sort of a clue for him. Like, crap, I effed that up, because I'm not in my normal game. I'm not in my normal element. So after that combo, Alan does talk Sam into leaving. He does go to work. And then the gentleman behind the door, Elias, starts speaking to Alan. And so in this, Alan is sort of now being a therapist to both Sam and to Elias. And the conversation starts, but it doesn't last long, because Mama comes down the steps. And she's fully aware of what's happening. She's like, yeah, he doesn't want to do this. This isn't what he wants to do. But he's listening. This is better than not. She's fully aware that there's another person in that room. And she's sort of in this, sort of making excuses for why Sam does this and is in the situation that he is in. It's interesting, because I feel like this sequence was a way to sort of, for her to come down and kind of check the situation, just to make sure that everything is still on the up and up down there. I still very much of the belief that Mom has more to do with what's happening here than not. And so I think she was just surveying and making sure that not too much was happening without her knowledge. But she goes back up. And then Alan and Elias sort of have a little bit further more of a conversation. And in that, we learn that Elias, one of the viewers here picked it up, he's the head chef and head person of this Asian restaurant. So he came up with the dishes for Asian stuff and all that. So that is why Asian food kept being what he brought back to Alan when he first brought him in there, because that is where he was at. He was stalking that person. So good catch. I didn't see that, but well done. But we learn that he is a mother. I mean, he is a son of a mom and dad. Mother also has cancer, and there's sort of a connection that happens when he mentions that his mom had cancer, because Alan's wife died of cancer. I don't know cancer. There's nothing that leads me to believe that the cancer existing connects. We don't know mom's profession, so I don't know if those connect things. But I feel like that's just a way for those two characters to connect, and it doesn't offer anything broader. Can't really delve into that much until we learn more about mom. But they keep having a little bit of rapport, and it's basically Alan trying to calm him down and say, look, I'm trying to assess the situation. Elias is like, hey, why don't you do something? Can you knock him out? Can you do anything? And he's like, look, I'm an old man. I'm chained to a fence. I'm not chained to a bed. And he's like, your hands are in cuffs. He cares more about you a little bit more than he does me. He trusts you a little bit more than me. He's like, yeah, but he doesn't quite follow the client-patient code like he should. They start getting into religion, and that's sort of where we learn a little bit more about Alan and the sort of the divide that has occurred in his family, which now makes it clear for me, because it wasn't 100% clear, but now I get it, because I'm not of the Jewish faith, so I didn't understand. Alan and his family are Jewish, have always been. His son when he got married, went towards a more a stricter and orthodox form of Jewish belief. And in that is where that sort of disconnect came with he and his mom. So his wife and his son used to be super close, but then that stopped once he got married, and he has grandkids. And so that gives you a little bit of that timeline where we saw in the wedding, time had passed, but we do learn that the wife has died within a few months. So it hasn't been that many months. That's why the ring's still on. He's still kind of coping with that. But I bring that up because he mentions my kids will notice that I'm gone. And then he quickly switches it and corrects it and says, my daughter will know, because his son doesn't come around or check on him enough anymore to do so. Elias says his parents will know immediately that he's not there, because he also helps take care of his mom. So there are going to be people out sort of looking for them, hopefully. So Alan is like, okay, well, cool. Let me see if I can extend this out a little bit more so that we now have two people that are missing and that people will be looking for. A note that I didn't realize in Orthodox Jewish faith is that there's a flashback that happens where Alan's wife brings dairy to her grandkids on his daughter's side after eating meat. Orthodox Jews can't have dairy and meat combined in the same meal. And so his son is just looking at his mom like, what are you doing? Like, my grandkids are looking at the ice cream hungrily, wanting that, but they knowing that we can't do that because of our faith. You're kind of pissing in our sand a little bit. And so that just further disconnects them. So that's why that piece was there. That's what that means for those who don't know. I didn't know, had to look it up. Now it makes a lot more sense, and I get a lot of why the disconnect had grown so much. While Alan and Elias are sort of connecting a bit, we see Sam at work kind of going through the paces, just stressed out. Like, he is stressed. He's thinking about back home all the time. There's an interesting thing that happens where his boss, he's beloved at work. And so everybody, they tell him that they should be like him. And so his boss, I guess, reads this letter that one of the restaurant owners made in regards to him, and it's all positive. And he reads it out to him. It is clear that he doesn't like to take affection or take praise. I don't know if that's something that happened within his childhood or has something to do with the father being dead. I feel like still they killed the father, but I think it's more the mother. There is something that happened between that mom and kid and Sam that just is put all of this into motion. So while he's at work, Sam's mom comes back down steps again with the phone, which has been non-charged, which leads me to believe that while Sam is very much, I gotta have everything all my ducks in a row. Mama's not, because she ain't doing nothing else up there. We don't know what her job is or where she goes or if she leaves at all, but for the most part, it sounds like she's always up there. That phone not being on the charger is not something that like should happen. So we're seeing a little. She lives in chaos a bit. She comes out with the charger and Sam's losing it. Sam's like, I'm thinking about it. I'm going to come home now. And Alan's like, no. He's doing everything possible again to keep them as far apart as he possibly can because he doesn't want to put him in the same room to give him that option. He's like, no, stay there. Think about it. Finish out the day. Let the day continue. I'm here if you need to call me again, but you need to finish out the day and do your thing there. And he does. We then see him pull in at night, and he brings a noise machine and his coffee. He's always drinking his coffee, but he brings a noise machine. He cracks the door, plugs the noise machine in, and puts the noise machine in the room where Elias is. This is so mainly that whatever he says to Alan is just between he and Alan. He doesn't want whoever's in there to know what it is that he's talking about, how he's getting out his feelings. Because if he does, for some reason, let this guy go, he doesn't want any information for that person to be known. They then have a conversation, and it gets a little, like, I can't do this. This isn't working. And I was like, it did work. You didn't kill anybody. He's like, no, but I thought the entire day about coming home and taking this dude out. And Alan's like, but you didn't. And that's a step. Like, we're in uncharted territory here. I've never done this. You've never done this with the person still being alive. You have done something today that's sort of a breakthrough. You've done something that we didn't think could be done. And he's like, you want me to go to work every day? Like, that's not the answer. I'm going to go kill him now. And Alan's like, no. And there are a couple of moments where Alan, while he is very calm in demeanor as a therapist, there are a couple of moments in this episode where he sort of breaks a little bit, where it becomes urgent, where he almost becomes father to son yelling a little bit. It doesn't bother, it doesn't catch Sam, it doesn't click, and he quickly retreats from it, but it's clear that there's an urgency to keep him from that door. I mean, so anytime that like Sam gets up and heads that way, that's when you hear the voice go up and like, no, or stop, because he's like, I'm trying to get your attention and turn you back around. And those are the only times that he does that. Once he has his attention again, he reverts back to being a little even keel and calmer of a therapist. But he's like, look, go talk to your ex-wife. Go talk to her. Go hang out with her. And he's like, what? He's like, that may seem silly, but you had an emotional response and an emotional connection to your ex-wife. Perhaps if you go see that will trigger you out of whatever rage, hate you have for this man to go and at least change your emotional state, and you'll be in a better state if you go do that. And he's like, okay. And it's an option. It's something like Alan's throwing everything he possibly can at the wall. He's like, okay, perhaps I will try that. Before he does that, he goes to the restroom. Again, I think this is a recurring thing that they keep trying to show is that how much pent up stuff Sam holds in all day. After drinking all that coffee all day, all that caffeine, he's jittery, he's anxious, but he's been holding whatever he has in. He goes in that restroom and he takes like a 3-minute piss again. Just to show you how much it is for him to release all of that when he finally does. My favorite part of this entire episode happens in the last like 3 minutes. Because it's fascinating to just see what's happening on people's faces. Sam's about to leave. Sam's leaving, heading out the door. Alan asks him, hey, can you turn off the noisemaker? Now, mind you, before he went into the restroom, Alan was like, just trust me. Can you trust me? I'm here, we're going to do this together, but trust me. And Sam doesn't verbally respond, but he's like, okay. This sort of puts that trust into question, because what happens is Sam hits that door. Alan's like, hey, can you turn off the noisemaker? And Sam's kind of like, well, he doesn't say anything, but he looks like, why do you need me to turn the noisemaker off? Like, are you and this guy having a conversation when I'm not here? What the hell are you doing? Like, no, I shouldn't turn this off. But he heads that way, and he's going to turn it off. But to turn it off, remember, he put it inside the door when you first arrived. So he goes to the door, puts his hand on the door, and kind of just pauses because he knows the way that he's feeling right now after just releasing that pee and like doing this right now, if he opens that door, he is going to kill this man. So he puts his hand on the door, breathes, and then takes his hand off the door. And you can see Alan like, shit, I may not have, should have had him. I had him out of the door. Like, I had him out. And now I have him going back this way. I just made a mistake. Takes his hand off the door, and then he unplugs it because he plugged it in on the outside of the door. He unplugs it and just drops the plug and heads out. And Alan knows in that brief moment that he almost made a mistake and put that guy back in the room with Elias, which is just, that's great storytelling and so well done. No words were said, but it's just that triangle like, crap, he was leaving. I could have done this without him, but he still wanted to make sure that he had that connection with Elias, because he's written a note for Elias about like if he doesn't make it, there's a connection there. He wants to keep him safe. Satan. Sam leaves, and the episode ends with us finally getting a visual of Elias taped up in despair. And he reveals his name, and Alan gives him his name back, and that's the end of the episode. It's a smart thing to do as an episode, as we don't see him the entire time. He is this object behind a door that we don't know, and it's not until the very end that we humanize him and make him somebody that Elias and Alan now know each other, and it has put some type of humanity to him. So now we're even more invested in that we were trying to keep him from going on the other side of that door, and now we know who's on the other side of that door. So it's going to make anything that happens on subsequent episodes that much more painful or harrowing, because now there's a human element to it all. Another quick, brisk episode. These 23-minute episodes, it's both love and hate. Part of me is like, I want more, but it leaves you just enough of a crumb so you can think about it and kind of like resonate in your head a bit more. I still think, again, they are responsible for the husband's death, but I think the mom is fully in on everything. And I think a lot of the pressure, reaction, and responses that Sam gives are at the behest of his mother, who has probably set all of this into motion. I don't know a world where a killer, the way that he speaks about killing, he talks a great game, but I don't know if his actions are quite there to bring this guy home. Alan does mention that, hey, he hasn't seen you yet, just like I didn't see you. Perhaps you can let him go without any repercussions. But I think now that, unfortunately, I think Alan having that noisemaker turned off has made it so that Sam doesn't quite trust him, and knows that, hey, as this goes along, Elias is going to know more than he should, and I might have to take him out. If at the very least, Mama with the poker coming down the steps is going to have to take him out. Those are my thoughts on this episode of The Patient Called Company. What did you guys think? Go ahead, leave your thoughts and comments in the comments below. If you haven't already, you can follow us on Twitter at HollywoodADI. You can hit us up on email at HollywoodAlreadyDidIt@gmail.com. We also have a podcast with the same name that's on Google Podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere that plays podcasts. We're there. And like always, I got my ticket. You got yours.